Do you guys remember when Call of Duty was cool? Look, I know it's been a while and it might be hard to believe, but there was actually a time where it was, back in the golden age of World War II shooters. Well guys, that's what we're going to talk about today, except we're not going to be playing vintage COD. We're actually going to take a look at Battalion 1944, which I think could be the next best thing in 2019. Hey guys, how you going? This is BillyEatWorld. Welcome to another video, and just before we start, I want to thank Square Enix and Bulkhead Interactive for sending me out a code for this game, which isn't to say that this is a paid review or anything, and they definitely haven't told me what to say. It's just that by law these days, I've got to tell you guys that. In fact, actually the way that it went down was that I reached out and contacted them because, obviously I focus on mainly Battlefield 5 and, well, this is another World War II shooter. And, well, I wanted to take a look at it right now because actually a few days ago the game officially launched out of a year or so in early access, and I was thinking maybe some of you guys were wondering whether it's worth jumping on board. So with that being said, the first and most obvious thing I can say about Battalion 1944 is that it's really about as far from Battlefield 5 as you can possibly get, apart from the fact that it's set in World War II. And like I said in the intro, what it's really trying to be is a spiritual successor to those first few COD games that we all know and love from the early 2000s. Except that obviously this one's got much better graphics and more modern control features like the ability to aim down sights. And I think most importantly for me as an old school player, it doesn't have a lot of the frills that were added into later COD games that got pretty annoying, like for example perks and score streaks. Now, that's actually a great way to describe it because Battalion 1944 really is an old-school World War II shooter in every sense of the phrase. It's fast-paced and it features all of the classic modes we know and love, like TDM, Domination, and Capture the Flag. And unlike BF5, all of the maps and weapons are instantly recognizable. There's no weird prototype weapons, and they're definitely not trying to tell the untold stories of World War II with their location choices. In fact, they're not really trying to tell a story at all. There's no single player, and apart from the training mode, pretty much your only option is to just jump straight into multiplayer, which would be pretty daunting in most modern shooters, right? But you've got to remember this isn't trying to be a modern shooter. And so I'd say even if you're not a big fan of FPS games, this one's going to be pretty straightforward. With that being said though, just because it's easy to play doesn't actually mean that it's easy, and in fact the first few games I was absolutely getting smashed. The time to kill in this game is super fast compared to in Battlefield, so in a nutshell you are going to die quickly and a lot, but the good news is, just like in COD, the respawn time is super fast as well. Working with your teammates using the in-game VoIP is one way to survive a bit longer, which fortunately is pretty easy to do considering that most servers are only 6v6. And as you can imagine, this is perfect for competitive style matches, and although I didn't really have much of a chance to try it out, the game does have a ranked mode if you're into that sort of thing. Now, another thing I should mention is that not only did the game come out of early access this week, they also added in an Eastern Front expansion at the same time, which basically added in a bunch of Soviet-themed weapons and maps to go along with the US and German factions that were already available in the base game. And speaking of weapons, well, that's another thing that's different from Battlefield, in that although there's a rank system, all the weapons are unlocked by default. But in saying that, there aren't any weapon upgrades or attachments in this game, although there is actually weapon skins that you can unlock through war chests, which you can grind by ranking up, or you can buy with real money. Also, another big difference from BF5 worth mentioning is that the weapons are faction locked in this game, and there aren't any cosmetic options for your player character model, which honestly is completely fine for me because in an FPS game all you can really see is your gun anyway, and I'd prefer it if all of the other players in the game actually looked historically accurate, even if I had to as well. And speaking of other players, well, another interesting feature that I noticed was that in multiplayer servers, if there aren't enough players to fill a server, the slots will be automatically filled up by bots, which is really good if you want to try and get a new server started, because it means you actually have something to do until it eventually populates with real people. So the real question is, why would you want to buy and play a game in 2019 that's trying to be like a game from 2003? And well, the answer is because it's still super fun. And I mean, games like BF5 are great, but sometimes you just want to jump in and shoot people with an M1 Garand for 10 minutes before you go to work, and you can't really do that in most modern shooters. Not just that, but the minimum specs for this game are literally like a Core 2 Duo and a GTX 570. So maybe you've got a laptop or a PC that can't run games like BF5, but you will be able to run this one. Which of course means that it's not going to look as polished as Battlefield either, but at the end of the day, like I said, it's heaps better than the old COD games it's inspired by, and that's all for me that really matters. Now, just before we finish up though, I really should mention that the only issue I had with this game was getting into servers in the first place, because there's currently no server queue in the game at the moment. And not just that, but I kind of felt like some of the guns might be a bit unbalanced, but that also could just be me. And also, you got to remember in a multiplayer shooter these days, balancing is always a long and ongoing process. And that kind of brings me to the last point I want to make in this video, which is, look, if you're not into getting shot in the back or getting one-hit kills by sniper rifles like you would, for example, in old COD games, then this game probably isn't going to be for you. But on the other hand, if you do want a quick, fast-paced infantry game with little or no BS going on around you, then sure, I'd definitely say give this one a try. But anyway, guys, that just about wraps up this quick review. So as always, make sure you let me know what you think in the comment section down below. And also, let me know if you think there's any other classic FPS games you'd like to see remade or reimagined into a game just like Battalion 1944. As always, though, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and please feel free to check out the links in the description if you want to see any more of these videos. And also, don't forget, you can also find my Twitter and Discord links down there as well if you want to keep in touch. And as always, until next time, see you later, and have a good one.